Cool. So what's going on, y'all? I'm joined by Jeff, founder of Sky Maven, Axie Infinity, Ronin Network, and we're just gonna chat about scaling and blockspace and what's in store for the future. And I'm Ben, co-founder of Optimism with Carl. My co-founder was just off here. Now you get a little taste of me. Round of applause! Woo! Yeah, jet lag be damned. Is this decentralized sequencing? Hey. Okay, so I guess I just wanted to kick off, Jeff, and just be like, tell me a little bit about the journey of Axie and Ronin. I know you guys have used a few different block spaces over the course of your history. Tell us the story. What's it been like?
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Marek. So Axie was really born out of the CryptoKitties community. So I was never interested in NFTs, or I was never interested in Ethereum or crypto until I found out about NFTs, right? I'm not an engineer. I actually grew up collecting insects, fossils, playing video games. The first thing I ever did on the internet was play StarCraft with my family in Korea. So even though I believed in the need for crypto, to be honest, I never felt drawn to it. I never felt like it was something where I could build or contribute. But that changed when I discovered NFTs through CryptoKitties. And so the early Axie team, right, we had this understanding that, hey, if we succeed, we're going to need to have a serious scaling strategy. But the problem is it was 2018 and nothing was ready, right? So we were actually some of the first users of something called Loom Network, if anyone remembers that. And we learned a lesson there, right? That you can't build your startup on top of someone else's startup. We deployed a marketplace, and the user experience was pretty good. It was a lot better, but there was the team kind of gave up. So we learned the lesson there, right? And then that's really where the idea for Ronin came out of. It was hey, if nobody has this ready right now, let's build it ourselves. And maybe there'd be a real demand for someone building a gaming-focused blockchain that had everything that you needed, right? That allowed you to scale with sufficient decentralization, et cetera, and open that up. So that's basically how we got to the idea of building out Ronin. But along the road, right, it was okay, how do we have something that works right now for our users, right? Because we already have a live community. We cannot be guinea pigs with very experimental, idealistic technology. At the same time, right, we have to balance security and everything like that. So that's kind of where, right, a lot of our technical kind of adventure kind of comes out of.
Hell yeah. By the way, an anecdote on CryptoKitties. Around that time, I was living in Boston, and so I was in the Boston crypto community, and that was very heavily Bitcoin focused. And I was always kind of this weird kid off to the side talking about Ethereum. CryptoKitties was the first time that even the Boston hardcore MIT Bitcoiners were okay, that's pretty cool. It didn't scale. To your point, it came up in conversations because Ethereum network fees were going through the roof and not working. But it literally was I think an inception point for a lot of people to understand oh, this isn't just the dumb libertarian gold on the internet thing. Cool. So that's super cool. Okay, and so just to play back, Ronin is an EVM chain that you guys built. And basically it's turned into a developer platform. Talk to me more about the product there. What is the end-to-end scope of the thing?
Yeah, so Ronin is an EVM sidechain made specifically for gaming. It's processed $4.2 billion in NFT volume. A lot of that through Axie Infinity. We have around 1.1 million daily active on-chain addresses, around 4 million monthly active on-chain addresses right now. 15 million Ronin wallet downloads. And the idea was actually, right, to build a chain that came equipped with all the things that you needed specifically for gaming, especially in the beginning, right? So it comes with an NFT marketplace that actually has, right, this system that guarantees creator royalties. It comes with a DEX, which is basically right now a Uniswap V2 fork, eventually V3, V4, et cetera. And I think our approach was right just to build a gaming chain that worked, that was relatively simple, and that was also right like flexible in how we end up scaling long term. So yeah, Ronin has gone beyond Axie. We just had a game over the last year, really blow up, called Pixels. It's kind of like Stardew Valley that hit 1.5 million daily active users. So yeah, we're in the top 5 most used chains on a daily basis. I think one of the top couple EVM chains right now. Right, like I think a lot of this conversation, what kind of led me to be here today is like we're starting to think really deeply about our long-term scaling strategy, right? Like how do we become potentially more of an L2? How do we have like a system that allows for like chains to be built on top of Ronin, right? That can all communicate with each other very seamlessly.
Hell yeah! Applause for that, Ethereum L2s. Let's go. I mean, I think one question to ask there though is, quite frankly, I think for a kind of app like gaming, what you guys did, it was a very reasonable path. Like to your point, we shouldn't build startups and other startups. I think you can argue that L2s still are in their startup era. I mean, we were just on a panel discussing how we're going to decentralize these damn things right before this, right? And so I don't know. I look at like a gaming sidechain, and I think like that is exactly the way for someone in the Ethereum community to like do a reasonable thing, get the UX, cost, et cetera, improvements that you need within that kind of like use case. But I'm curious to hear from you, like how was that kind of decision perceived by the Ethereum? Like, I think there's a notion of Ethereum alignment where we can be a little snotty, and like I'm totally guilty of this as an L2 founder, being like, oh, well, it's just a side chain. What has that experience been like?
We're focused on getting users, right? That's our number one thing. It's like making infrastructure that allows developers to get users, and we came at that problem by basically creating our own app that had users and then building the tech for it. So we're very pragmatic, and we try not to be overly idealistic because that can cause huge delays, and we have users now. So I think we've always came at it from a very pragmatic and practical angle. But of course, like that's also sometimes like there's been issues, right? Oh, like it sounds okay to have like a side chain with not like huge security guarantees for gaming, but ends up we were too successful, right? And we ended up having like a huge bridge with that got attacked. So yeah, I think that I see us as part of the Ethereum ecosystem. We use ETH as money on our chain. We contribute code. We just submitted an EIP around a new delegation standard, right, for basically NFT rentals. But yeah, that's been an interesting dynamic, right, where we've always felt like we're part of the Ethereum community, but we've also always been a little bit separate. I think one of the things that we're looking to, right, like long term, is to more closely, to be closer to the rest of the Ethereum community, and I think part of that, right, is like how we basically figure out our scaling path long term as some of the question marks around the tech start to solidify.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things that you spoke to a lot is incrementalism, and that is really important. Like, I think that we need to do a better job as a community giving tools for applications to walk along stepping stones towards security and decentralization that match where they are in the market. Like, the reality is, I think even as these L2s mature, it still may be the right decision for a new Ronin coming onto the scene to not start with all of this crazy L2 infrastructure and tie your fees to the blob price, and instead just have a sidechain. But I do think one thing that's missing is being able to graduate that up once you get more TVL on chain, more value being transacted, et cetera. And I think on the flip side of that, like we as the Ethereum community can do a better job understanding those nuances and differences and trade-offs that people are making. Like I don't know. I think we're getting past this, but like there was a meme for L2s for a long time that was like, we need an ether scan. And it wasn't like that's a different statement than we need a good block explorer that our users like. There was like a notion of like, you're not part of the Ethereum community because it's not on an ether scan. And this is just to me like a kind of laughable, incorrect way to go about considering the bounds of the Ethereum community. And I think sidechains can be another example of this as well, which maybe not in my interest to say as like an L2 founder, but
I mean, that was one of the things, right? It was like, oh, people are like, oh, you guys are putting up so much data, but people don't know about it. It's because nobody can make Dune dashboards for you. And you're like, okay, like nice. We'll fix that, right? So we just announced today that Ronin is live on Dune Analytics. So go check it out. Go check out the data.
Woo!
Make some dashboards. It is some of the best data in the EVM ecosystem, right? Like the way that I see it is, it's wartime for Ethereum. We need to beat Solana. We cannot be seen as too tech-centric and idealistic, and we need to get users. And a lot of those users in the EVM ecosystem right now, they're on Ronin, right? They're in places like emerging economies, right? The Philippines, Vietnam, Argentina, Venezuela, right? That's where the benefits of crypto make a lot of sense right now. And that's happening on the Ronin ecosystem, but I feel like because of the data was kind of siloed by not being on Dune, people weren't really recognizing that. So yeah, that's one of the things that I've thought a lot about. And when it comes to things like Ethereum alignment as well.
Hell yeah, I love the applause. I love the energy. I will say that applause at Dune is exactly what I'm talking about. We should try to work towards being a community where the data speaks for itself, and just being able to access it through one portal doesn't fundamentally change every point. I get that, of course, people being able to build dashboards and stuff like this, like Dune is an incredible tool for the community, but I do think it's important for us to not over-focus on what single centralized services bring to the table when we talk about what are the bounds of Ethereum. Anyway, I think we got 5 minutes left. As the L2 landscape continues to evolve, and you guys, you said you're looking into that. What does that mean to you? Or how do you think about the product requirements for L2s to do as good of a thing for you as you need and improve over the sidechain product you have now?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll think, in terms of the requirements, I think we have a very good understanding of what the builders on Ronin want and what will also make sense for the users. So right now, Ronin is one sidechain, right? There are no app chains built on top of Ronin, but the thing that we can anticipate is that, hey, let's say Axie starts blowing up again and growing thousands of % per month, or Pixels grows from a couple million monthly actives now to 20 million, right? Let's say everything that we want to come to pass comes true. We're gonna have to start basically spinning off some of these games onto their own separate chains. The problem then is that, hey, the NFT marketplace, right? The Mavis market, Katana, the DEX, they're now on the main Ronin chain, right? And then, so how are those chains, like the Pixels chain, the Axie chain, how are they gonna basically access liquidity from the Ronin, right, quote unquote, main chain? And then, okay, let's say an Axie player, wants to send something to a Pixels player, right? How do they communicate, and how do they transfer something from the Axie chain to the Pixel chain, for example? So that experience needs to be very fast. It needs to be very intuitive. It needs to be something that just works. And so that's that's a lot of what we've been talking about. Whether it's with you guys, with with Polygon, with their CDK, right? We're exploring a bunch of different options, and so that's kind of what we're thinking about in terms of the requirements and the thing that will make our life easier, and for us to basically make it worth it for us to do something as large as upgrading our infrastructure.
Yeah, I think it's no coincidence that a lot of people, ourselves included, have termed to interoperability, which is maybe a very nebulous word, but it gets at the kinds of problems that you're talking about. And I would even say that's a story that I hear pretty often, on the other side of an L2 ecosystem, is there's clearly a notion that I think it seems like what will be accepted into the canon is the notion of clustering, of some idea of the Ronin ecosystem has some bounds, and there's a notion of adding more chains as the throughput demands for that state space need to increase. And then there's a notion of okay, well, these things all need to talk to each other and not descend into UX wait time kind of hell. So checks out.
Yeah, and obviously there's also a lot of wallet UX considerations that come out of that. So yeah, it's all really fun problems, but to solve. And the good thing though is as we will be faced with those if we're really successful, and the games that are currently on the Ronin chain, right, like scale a couple of magnitudes as well. So I think there is some time. The only thing that would throw a wrench in these plans is something that happened like something that happened last time, right, where everything just grows exponentially within a 9-month period, and things aren't necessarily ready.
Well, I feel like this panel should have been swapped with the other one because it was the perfect setup to talk about scaling horizontally and vertically. But just imagine it reversed in your head, y'all. I think that's all the time that we got. So thanks so much for stopping by.